From time to time, I get the question, why are Hoya so expensive? When you can get a pot full of commercially available Hoya at a big box store for roughly, say, 20 bucks, why would anybody spend the kind of money that many of the people in this audience spend on what I'll call specialty Hoya? That stuff outside the mainstream and sometimes way outside the mainstream. Rather than trying to address those comments one at a time from now on, I thought I would just make a video, and if someone cares to learn more about it, they can watch this or not. But stick around, I have some thoughts on this. Hey guys, it's Dave, and like a bad penny, I am back with you after my getting monetized in 10 weeks video, which I really didn't expect many of my normal viewers or return viewers to watch, and holy cow, it took me over 2 hours to respond to all the comments that I already had this morning. So wow, thank you very much. And I am mid-process into repotting a few plants while I talk about the subject at hand. Why are plants like, perhaps this one, so expensive? This is a second Svetlana. You may have seen one in an earlier video. I really like it, and I have high hopes for this one. So I got a second one, and it was growing in kind of a moss and sand, so I just put this into my own mix. And I think you know that if you want to know what I use, those ingredients are Amazon links in my description, so I won't go through that right now. This isn't a chores video. So let me set this one aside, grab another plant. This is an MT09. These grow just absolutely enormous leaves. But let's start with those pots of $20 Hoya you can buy at your Lowe's, Home Depot, grocery store, gas station. I don't know where you can find them, everywhere. And I say everywhere because Costa Farms is about a $500 million company with almost 3,000 employees. So they have just huge economy of scale, and they typically grow plants that are likely to survive through the distribution system, although 50% of their plants do die during distribution, and I won't even get into once they come home. I've addressed it in another video, and I'm sure I will at some point in the future, but that's not what today's for. So they're growing plants, one, that are tough, and they're also growing plants that are likely to sell. So the plant I am molesting right now, not likely to have mass appeal. It looks reasonably plain. You really do have to grow this up into a mature plant for it to have that factor. And it does have the wow factor, but not at this stage. The other big company is Proven Winners. That's a $1 billion company, but they also do a lot of outdoor gardening plants. Outdoor gardening plants? Outdoor plants. And so if you've ever done any outdoor gardening, you've probably purchased one of their products. I don't know a lot about the company. I do know they partner with a bunch of huge nurseries around the United States. So that's one reason that those plants can be priced the way they are. They produce a ton of them, and they focus on only a very few. So if you were to today go to Costa Farms' website, you can see what's currently in production, and it's very, very limited. Understandably, I mean, they are supplying a lot of plants to people, and you can see how delicate I am with my Hoya. So there's that. I mean, it's a pretty simple explanation. They have huge land mass, they make a lot of plants, and they sell a lot of plants. So this plant, just for instance, was a $35 plant. So there we go, and that's a good price. So happy with that. Let me grab another plant. I will continue. This really cool plant is called Bat Cave, IML 1198. I had to look at the tag, I forgot. I'm going to do something a little crazy with this. This is not a terribly well-rooted plant, but I'm getting a lot of it. I fear dry rot more than I do fear over potting this. Over potting is not really something that scares me at all. This is not what the topic is today, so let me just do this. Gently take this out. So this Bat Cave, if you were to come across one of these, I think they're probably in the $50 range for a node and 2 or 3 leaves, something like that. You know, I'm sort of guessing. This is definitely a specialty plant. It's going to be hard to find, or at least there aren't going to be a lot of sellers. You'll be able to find it, but it's not like you're going to find it at the grocery store, right? So I have had this plant this summer, and I bought it with these 2 leaves, and it has put on this amount of vine right now, which, you know, I can grow this on a trellis, which I'm going to do, or I could trim that off and propagate, which I don't want to do because these are brand new leaves and likely wouldn't go well for it. Actually, I probably will just put it on a tall bamboo because I don't want to put it in a 4-inch pot. But anyway, these are plants that are going to be grown more on a micro scale like I do and like most people on Etsy, even if they have a, you know, a nice greenhouse and so forth. It's minuscule compared to a company that's doing $500 million or more in business a year. So there's an enormous investment in time, I can tell you that. No question. I am multitasking while I do this video. When I'm done with this, I'm going to spend somewhere between 2 and 3 hours dealing with the upstairs plants, the tent where I grow a lot of the plants that I sell, so that I can work on some different projects this weekend when I usually would be dealing with the tent. And it's nonstop. I can't decide to take a month off of this hobby / business because I'm tired or I don't feel well, or I'm bored, or I just found other things to do. It does not work that way. And I'm sure that we've all seen channels where people have taken time off because they're burned out or having mental issues or whatnot. Plants start suffering very, very quickly. The expectation of buying a plant from someone like me is very, very high. So I have to keep these plants not only growing incredibly well, keep tons of propagations through my house. Until just recently, I had 7 huge prop boxes just on this main floor, bless my wife's heart. And then when I deliver it, they have to be delivered pest-free, of course. So I'm always treating my plants as though they have pests. I am always on top of it. I've never had a pest outbreak because of that, no doubt. But the expectation is that when a plant is delivered to somebody, it's going to be about perfect. And, you know, I think I hold up to that pretty well, as well as anybody can. There's also a pretty high outlay of money just acquiring plants and the equipment and the fertilizer, the accessories that go with it. I have 35 grow lights in my house that run 10 to 14 hours a day, depending. And that's an expense. Then there's how we acquire these plants, and a lot of times that's through import. And so if something's coming in from Thailand, you can expect it to be in bad to worse shape, meaning it may have to be completely started over. It might be all the way melted. You absorb that cost. There are no do-overs in that. So more money is the bottom line. So when you see someone selling, you know, a Bat Cave for $50, believe me when I say they've earned that money if it's a good, healthy plant. The last thing I'll kind of say of these micro growers like me is if you take a plant like this is the silver dollar from Mike Bernardo. There is a sister to this called Penny's Treat. So how a plant like this comes into being is it's hybridized with the parent plants. The seeds are grown up. 2 out of those seedlings were picked for very unique qualities. The rest were destroyed. That leaves, in this case Mike Bernardo, 1 plant of this and 1 plant of Penny's Treat. Those plants have to be grown up and propagated and sold, and grown up and propagated and sold. So the supply is incredibly limited. This was an absolutely, positively, extraordinarily, stratospherically priced plant at one time. I heard on a podcast, I didn't know it had gone this high, $1,000 for a node and 2 leaves. I knew when I was looking at it, it was $600. I think you can probably get a little starter plant now for, you know, $35 to $50, depending on how good the plant is and whatever factors there are, you know, who you're buying it from, basically. That's because the supply now is out there, but to begin with, it wasn't. Would I ever spend that kind of money? No. Even as someone who sells plants, I wouldn't chase it, because there are a ton of people trying to chase that new super expensive plant and cash in on it. And I understand that, you know, it's like I said, I'm not, no boo-hoo, I love what I do, 100%. But it's a lot of hard work and a lot of plants that aren't selling. And if you can get a slam dunk that you could, you know, put a little cash in the bank, you know, that's a good thing. But trying to chase that and then watch the prices go down, I had a friend spend $4,000 on a small plant, and by the time it was viable to sell, it was worth almost nothing. She is literally selling starter plants of it for $10. Ouch. So I want to talk about the last category, and then I'll let you go. That category is unscrupulous sellers. There are plenty of sellers on Etsy and eBay and overseas sellers that are just making up names. I get a question, once a week, I don't know how often, but have you heard of fill in the blank of some Hoya that absolutely does not exist? And it very frequently is a spin on a name of an established Hoya where the prices come way down. And so now, instead of calling it a Hoya Sunrise, we're now going to call it a Hoya Sunrise Sunset Starry Night, you know, for instance. That's completely made up, of course. But there's no such thing, you know. And those people should be called out by name when they're found. There are other ways to spend a ton of money, and that is on variegation. Besides those unscrupulous sellers, and there are far too many of them, frankly, another great way to spend your money is having to have the latest, greatest variegated plant. Those are not being discovered in Aceh or Papua New Guinea or wherever. Those are being created. So with toxins or with radiation to change the DNA structure, take the, what was the really popular Argentea Princess, going for so much money. Man, oh man, all I looked at was a plant that people are going to spend at that time a couple grand on, $1,000 on, and just watch it revert. And that is exactly what's happening. And I don't feel in any way happy that I was right. That's horrible. But keep in mind, any variegated plant at any price is unstable. I have some Carnosa exotica that's quite stable, but not perfectly. So spending those big dollars is very, very risky, and only for those people who absolutely must have the latest and the greatest right now. I assure you, if a plant is cool and it grows well, because there are plants over the last few years that were hot, 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 that you have never heard from again. They died. They did not make it in household conditions. Not something Costa Farms would invest millions of dollars in producing, that is for sure. But that's a risk that if someone's got that kind of money, they can take. But that's the rundown on Hoya pricing. Mass market, mass appeal, economy of scale, micro growers like me who are consumed with quality, variety, and health above all else, and delivering that plant to a happy new plant owner. And if there is a problem, we take care of it. No questions asked from me. Okay, I've never had to do it yet, but believe me, if I deliver a plant and it doesn't do well, there's not going to be any of this, I'll give you a partial refund business. Not in my world. And then you have the unscrupulous sellers or the people in the labs creating obscenely expensive plants. I hope that was helpful. I hope that answers some questions. Thanks for putting up with me doing some plant chores so I could multitask, get something done. I hope you get something done too, something special for just yourself. Join me in the next one real soon. Bye-bye.